Whispers in the Walls by Angie. Chapter 1, The House That Waited. I didn't want to come here. Even as the gravel crunched under our tires and the shadow of Ashridge House crept across the windshield, I felt the air change. Thicker somehow, like breathing through gauze. Tom, ever the optimist, gave my knee a squeeze. "It's not so bad," he said, squinting up at the towering facade. "Bit of a fixer-upper, sure. But look at the space, Claire. The land. Eli's going to love it here." Eli was asleep in the back seat, clutching his stuffed bear. His mouth hung open slightly, a halo of soft blonde curls over his eyes. Innocent. Unaware. I envied him. The house had been in my family, though I couldn't say I ever remembered hearing of it. Some great-aunt or second cousin, long dead with no heirs. The solicitor's letter came like a ghost through the mail slot. The deed, the keys, and a thin, typed note. "It is yours now. Keep it well, and it will keep you." It sounded more like a warning than a blessing. The front door creaked on its hinges as we stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the shafts of golden light from the tall windows. The scent was unmistakable. Old wood, damp stone, the faintest whiff of mildew, and something else. Something sweet, like rotting fruit. I tried not to wrinkle my nose. Tom whistled, low and appreciative. "Now that's a staircase." He pointed to the grand curved structure that rose like a spine up the middle of the entryway. It was beautiful. I had to admit, the kind of craftsmanship that doesn't exist anymore. I ran a hand along the banister. The wood was cold, greedy. "This place gives me the creeps," I murmured. Tom grinned. "That's the charm. It's character, Claire." It was more than that. I felt it, even then, the way the house seemed to lean in around me, listening, watching. We explored the rooms one by one. Each had its own strange personality. A sunroom lined with cracked glass and brittle ivy, a parlor still filled with faded furniture and porcelain dolls that had been left to stare blankly into eternity. I found Eli in the hallway just outside the kitchen, ear pressed against the wall. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" I asked, crouching beside him. He didn't look at me. "She's whispering again." A cold bead of sweat rolled down my spine. "Who is?" He finally turned to me. His eyes were wide and serious. "The lady in the walls. She sings to me when you're asleep." I glanced at Tom, who just entered behind us with a box of linens. "He's just playing," he said with a chuckle. "Imagination. That's what 6-year-olds do, right?" But the hallway had gone quiet. Too quiet. I couldn't hear anything. Not then. That night, I dreamed of water. Dark, black water that stretched on forever, and I was sinking. Arms reaching for the surface that grew farther away with every heartbeat. In the silence of the deep, I heard a voice, gentle as a lullaby and cold as ice. "You belong to me now." I woke gasping, the sheets damp with sweat. The bedroom was dim, moonlight casting skeletal shadows across the wall. I reached for Tom, but the bed beside me was empty. I listened. In the silence just beneath the ticking of the clock, I heard it, a whisper. Faint, just behind the wall. Chapter 2, Little Things Out of Place. I told myself I was just tired. The move had taken more out of me than I expected. Tom was still settling into his new remote job. Eli had already caught a cold, and I was trying to clean a century's worth of dust from every surface. No wonder I was forgetting things. Keys, coffee mugs, entire conversations. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. It started with the small things. A spoon left in the sink was suddenly on the counter. My scarf, which I distinctly remembered hanging by the door, appeared folded neatly on my pillow. A framed picture of Eli and me was turned face down on my nightstand, as though someone or something had changed its mind about our happiness. The house was cold, too. Always colder than it should have been. I'd wake in the night and see my breath blooming in the air, thin and ghost-like. Tom said it was drafts. "These old places breathe, Claire. Relax." But it didn't feel like the house was breathing. It felt like it was listening. Eli stopped eating lunch one afternoon and stared toward the parlor doorway. I was unpacking dishes and didn't notice at first. It wasn't until I realized his sandwich was untouched and his tiny hands were trembling that I asked him what was wrong. "She doesn't like loud chewing," he whispered. "Who doesn't?" He pointed to the parlor. The whispering lady. She gets mad when I crunch too loud. My hand stilled on the silverware. Tom was upstairs on a call. I walked over, knelt beside Eli, and cupped his face gently. "Sweetheart, is someone talking to you?" He nodded. Not with words, just in my head. I wanted to believe it was a game, something he'd imagined in a house too big and too strange. But his face was pale. His eyes darted like he was afraid she might hear him talking to me. "Maybe it's time we sleep in the same room tonight," I said. He nodded again. "She doesn't like that either." Later, while Tom was fixing a leaky pipe in the basement, I wandered through the upstairs hallway. It had been raining for hours, and water dripped steadily from the cracked ceiling, making little tapping sounds, rhythmic, like fingers drumming. I paused outside one of the upstairs bedrooms. The door was slightly ajar, though I could have sworn I'd shut it. I nudged it open and stepped inside. It was empty, mostly. The wallpaper was peeling, the bed frame stripped of linens. But what caught my eye was the faint pattern scratched into the far wall. Tiny, etched shapes. Symbols? I walked closer and squinted. No, not symbols. Words. They were carved into the wall, hundreds of them, repeated over and over in faint, angry lines. "Let me out! Let me out!" I backed away slowly, heart thudding in my chest. And then I heard it. A soft click behind me. The door had closed. I scrambled for the handle, fingers slippery with panic, but it wouldn't budge. The knob turned, but the door stayed shut. I pounded against it, called out, but the hallway beyond was silent. The whisper started faintly. At first, I thought it was the wind in the chimney, but it was inside the room. It was everywhere. "Claire?" My name, spoken like a breath. "Claire? Claire?" It slithered beneath my skin through my bones as though the house was tasting me. And just like that, the door opened on its own. Tom stood in the hallway, a confused look on his face. "You okay?" I stepped out without answering. The words were gone from the wall. The room was clean, pristine. Like I'd imagined the whole thing. That night, I found a journal in my dresser drawer. It was leather-bound, with a tarnished clasp and yellowed pages. I didn't recognize it. I hadn't unpacked anything like this. Inside, the handwriting was spidery and inconsistent, some lines frantic and jagged, others neat and orderly. I flipped to the last page. It read, "The whispers are always louder when you pretend they aren't real. Stop pretending, Claire. You're not fooling anyone." I dropped the book. Across the hall, Eli laughed softly in his sleep, or maybe he hadn't been asleep at all. Chapter 3. The Journal and the Mirror. I didn't tell Tom about the journal. Part of me wasn't sure he'd believe me. Another part wasn't sure I believed myself. I kept it tucked in the bottom drawer beneath a stack of sweaters, but I found my eyes drifting to it every time I walked past. I couldn't explain it. It was like it called to me. Not with sound, but with weight, as if its presence pulled something in the air, something invisible and insistent. Late that night, when Tom and Eli had long since drifted into sleep, I sat on the floor in the corner of our bedroom and opened the book again. This time, the pages had changed. Where there had once been only a final entry warning me to stop pretending, there were now several more. I flipped backwards, scanning the scrawled dates and realizing with a chill that the handwriting wasn't from long ago. It was mine. Not similar to mine. Exactly mine. Entry after entry in my own voice, in my own looping script, the lady is inside the walls. She knows my secrets. I keep hearing my name when no one is speaking. I think the house remembers me. Eli said I was singing in the hallway last night. I wasn't. I wasn't. I wasn't. The repetition made my stomach twist. I ran my hands through my hair and closed the book with a snap. A whisper brushed against my ear, impossibly close. "You were." I spun around. No one was there. But my reflection in the mirror across the room was still smiling, and I wasn't. I approached the mirror slowly, barefoot on creaking floorboards, my breath held tight in my chest. It wasn't an ornate mirror, just an old standing one left in the corner like someone had tried to forget it. Its frame was faded brass, tarnished green in places, and spiderwebbed with cracks that hadn't been there before. I stood in front of it, face to face with myself. At first, everything seemed normal, but then, after a few seconds, I noticed the eyes. My reflection blinked too slowly. Held her smile too long. Tilted her head before I did. My mouth went dry. I reached out. The mirror did too, but not in sync. She moved just a second ahead of me like she was leading, and when my fingers brushed the cold glass, she winked. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. The sound snapped Tom awake. "Claire?" he mumbled, voice thick with sleep. "What are you doing?" I stared at the mirror. The reflection was normal now, motionless, my own tired face looking back at me. "Nothing," I whispered. "I just thought I heard something." He groaned and rolled over. I stayed up the rest of the night. The next morning, Eli wouldn't come downstairs. I found him curled under his blanket, wide-eyed, staring at the ceiling. His sketchbook lay open beside him, a black crayon snapped in two. I picked it up. He'd drawn the parlor, the furniture, the fireplace, the shadowy corner behind the piano. And in that shadow, he'd drawn a woman. Or rather, a suggestion of one. Long black hair, claw-like hands, and no face. Just a mouth, stitched shut. "She says you forgot her," he said softly. My heart froze. Who did? The whispering lady. She said this house remembers everything, even you. "Ely, it's just a dream." "No," he said firmly. "She doesn't like it when you lie." He pulled the blanket over his head and refused to come out. That evening, I went back to the mirror. This time, I was ready. I turned on every light in the room. I braced myself. I stood in front of it, gripping the edges of the frame. And I watched. For a long moment, my reflection behaved. Until it didn't. It smiled at me again. But this time, it didn't stop. The corners of its mouth stretched too wide, unnaturally so, lips splitting at the edges into something that wasn't human. It raised its hand, slowly, deliberately, and pointed behind me. I turned. The journal was lying open on the bed, though I had locked it in the drawer. Its pages flipped on their own, blown by wind that didn't exist. Then it stopped. Another new entry. "You are not Claire." Chapter 4. Ghosts don't whisper, they wait. The moment I read the words "You are not Claire," something inside me shifted. Like a thin layer of glass cracking beneath pressure I hadn't realized was there. I closed the journal with shaking hands, locked it in the top drawer of my nightstand this time, and jammed the key into my jeans pocket. But even then, I felt no safer. If the journal could change on its own, what was a lock going to do? Downstairs, Tom was humming to himself, completely unaware, blissfully unaware. That used to comfort me. Now it only made me feel alone. That night, Eli was quiet during dinner. Too quiet. He picked at his food, his eyes unfocused, like he was watching something invisible just behind my shoulder. When I asked him what was wrong, he didn't speak, just slowly turned his head toward the hallway. "The lady's getting louder," he whispered. "She says you've been here before." I exchanged a look with Tom, who raised an eyebrow at me, clearly annoyed. He was tired of the stories, tired of the tension, tired of me. "I think we should take a break from the house this weekend," he said gently. "Go somewhere, clear our heads." Eli shook his head sharply. "She won't let us leave now." Tom scowled. "Enough, Eli." But deep down, I knew he was right. The dream came again. The water deeper than ever, black and endless. I floated weightlessly, soundless, blind, but I could feel it, her presence. No longer just a whisper. Now she was singing. A soft, warbled lullaby, the kind you hum to a baby on the verge of sleep, sweet and wet and wrong. And then I saw them, hands, reaching out from the dark, pale and bloated, grasping for me. I screamed underwater, but no sound came, only the voice. "He belongs to me." I woke with a gasp, clutching the sheets. The room was empty. Tom's side of the bed was cold. Panic flared. I bolted down the hall to Eli's room. His bed was empty too. "Tom," I called. "Tom, where's Eli?" No answer. Only silence, until the whisper came, just behind the wall. "Downstairs." I ran. The parlor was empty. So was the kitchen. So was the sunroom. My footsteps echoed in the silence, too loud, too alone. And then, faintly, I heard humming. Eli's voice, coming from behind the old piano in the parlor. "Eli," I called, breathless, approaching. "Are you hiding, sweetheart? Please, answer me." No response. Just the humming, soft and rhythmic. I moved the piano. Dust billowed into the air, thick as smoke. Behind it, barely noticeable in the faded wallpaper, was a thin outline of a door, a hidden passage. And at the base of it, Eli's bear, dropped, damp, eyes missing. My hands trembled as I reached for the knob. Old brass, cold as ice, and pulled. It opened onto a narrow staircase descending into blackness. Stone walls, no lights. The smell hit me first. Rot, mildew, something far older than the house itself. I swallowed my fear and went down. The steps felt endless. I could barely see, groping along the wall until I reached the bottom. A single, flickering oil lamp hung from a rusted sconce on the far wall, illuminating what looked like a small chamber carved into the earth. The walls were covered in scratches. Names. Dozens of them. Claire, Elizabeth, Lillian, Eleanor, Claire, Claire, Claire. Over and over. In the center of the room was a crib. Empty. Beside it sat Eli. He was humming, rocking Jerry into the dark. "Eli," I whispered, "what are you doing down here?" "She showed me," he said, smiling faintly. "She said I was the only one who could hear her." "Who?" His eyes flicked toward the far corner, where the shadows thickened. I followed his gaze. And that's when I saw her. Just barely visible. A woman, kneeling, twisted backward on herself. Her limbs bent at angles that made no sense. Her hair hung like seaweed over her face. Her mouth was torn and sewn shut with thick black thread. But she was whispering anyway. I couldn't hear her, but I could feel her voice in my bones. Eli stood, walking toward her. "No, Eli!" I rushed forward and grabbed him. The woman lifted her head, and I remembered. Suddenly, violently, I remembered. This wasn't my first time in Ashridge House. I had been here before, as a child, with my own mother, and I had left, but she hadn't. The whispers turned into a scream, and the room began to collapse inward, not physically, but perceptually. The walls folded, time bent, memory unspooled like thread in water. I clutched Eli and ran. Up the stairs, into the parlor. The piano crashing behind us. Tom was there, frantic. "Where the hell were you? I've been looking for you both." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Only one thought clanged in my head like the house doesn't haunt people. It remembers them. That night, I opened the journal again. A new entry had appeared, written in a hand I hadn't seen before. Not mine. "You left her here once. You cannot leave again." Chapter 5. The Truth Behind the Walls. The wind howled outside, rattling the old glass panes like bones in a box. I stayed up that night, seated in the hallway with the journal resting on my knees. I kept every light on. Eli slept curled beside me on a makeshift mattress. Tom had given up trying to talk sense into me hours ago. He retreated into bed with frustration in his eyes and silence in his mouth. I couldn't explain it to him. The journal didn't lie. Not anymore. It simply remembered. And I was starting to believe the house did too. The new entry was written in someone else's hand. Elegant, archaic, but the words were brutal. "Claire, daughter of Eleanor Ashridge, returned at last. She left me buried, left me screaming. You left me." I stared at it until the words blurred. Eleanor Ashridge, that name. Why did it ring so close to my bones? I returned to the family records we'd found in the attic during our first week, the ones I had dismissed as local legend. Yellowed newspaper clippings, birth records, a few wedding photos. Faces faded, names half erased by time. Then I saw her. In one photo, a little girl, around 6, hair in dark braids, a pinafore dress. The caption read, "Claire Ashridge photographed beside her mother Eleanor in 1974. The girl had my eyes. No, she had my face. I dropped the photo like it had burned me. I wasn't born in Chicago like I always thought. I wasn't adopted. I hadn't moved here. I had come home. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up just before dawn to the sound of scratching. Not from within the room. From the walls. Slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging through plaster. I pressed my ear to the wood paneling outside the parlor, and I heard crying. Soft, raspy, like it was coming from inside the walls themselves. "Let me out," a voice whispered. "Claire, please, I didn't want to go." It wasn't the whispering lady this time. It was a child. Tom finally confronted me at breakfast. "You're unraveling," he said. "You think I don't see it? The journal, the mirror, this obsession. You need help, Claire. I found a photo of me from before, From when I lived here. You never lived here, he snapped. I turned to Eli. You believe me, don't you? He nodded. She said you forgot because it hurt too much. Tom slammed his cup down. That's it. He grabbed the journal and marched to the fireplace. No! I lunged, but he was faster. He threw it into the flames. The leather sizzled, and the pages curled into blackened tongues. I screamed. Eli cried. And from deep within the walls, something shrieked. Not wind, not pipe, not human. That night, the mirror cracked straight through the middle, a split like a wound. The hallway lights flickered and went out, and the door to the hidden stairway creaked open again, all on its own. The scent of lilies drifted up, sweet, heady, and wrong. The same scent I remembered from my mother's funeral. I went alone, down the steps. Deeper this time. Past the crib. Past the chamber. Into another room, one I hadn't seen before. It wasn't stone, it was wood, wallpapered, familiar, my childhood bedroom, perfectly intact. My old toys sat on a shelf, my books lined the walls. A stuffed rabbit missing one eye waited patiently on the bed. It was preserved like a museum, like it had been waiting. And there on the nightstand sat the journal, whole, unburned, waiting. I opened it. Inside, only one sentence. You buried her here. I turned slowly. The far wall had been stripped to bare floorboards. And scratched into the center of the wooden planks in jagged, childlike scrawl, she wouldn't stop screaming, so I made her part of the house. The truth hit me like a tidal wave. I hadn't left a sister here. I hadn't lost a twin. I had killed her. Chapter 6. The other Claire. I couldn't breathe. The words carved into the floor pulsed in my vision like open wounds. She wouldn't stop screaming, so I made her part of the house. Each letter a blade, slicing through the truth I had clung to like a raft in a storm. I staggered back from the wall, the journal falling from my hands. The memories came in flashes, blinding, sharp, like someone had torn a curtain down in my mind and let the light pour in all at once. 2 girls, identical, laughter, jealousy, screaming, a locked room, a forgotten birthday, mother choosing her, and me. I wasn't just Claire Ashridge. I was the one who survived. Or maybe the one who was left behind. I remembered the scream most clearly. High-pitched, endless, echoing through the walls like the start of a storm. We had been playing hide-and-seek. The grown-ups were fighting downstairs. No one heard her cry when I shut her in the old dumbwaiter. She liked small spaces. She said they made her feel safe. I only meant to scare her. But when the power went out and the dumbwaiter jammed and the silence stretched on for days, I forgot. Or maybe I wanted to. I ran from the room. The hallway seemed longer now, warped, the shadows too tall. The stairs groaned beneath my feet, each one whispering my name as I passed. Claire! 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 By the time I reached the parlor, Eli was standing at the piano again, and he wasn't alone. Tom was beside him, eyes wide, face pale. He was frozen in place, staring at something I couldn't see, but Eli could. He smiled. She came back. My mouth was dry. Who? My aunt. The other Claire. The mirror behind them flickered like water, and then she stepped through it. Not literally, not physically, but the idea of her emerged. Same face, same eyes, same hair, but thinner, paler. And her mouth wasn't sewn shut anymore. It smiled at me. A cruel, familiar smile. Hello, she's sister? Tom backed away. What the hell is going on? She's not real, I whispered, but my voice shook. Not real, she echoed. I am everything you've forgotten. I am the guilt that buried you. I'm the truth you tried to kill. I grabbed Eli and stepped between them. You're not taking him. Oh, sweet Claire, she whispered, stepping closer. Her face began to warp, hair stringing into damp ropes, eyes hollowing. I don't want him, she pointed to me. I want you. The walls began to shift, peeling away to reveal the truth beneath the wallpaper. Names, dates, screams etched into plaster. The whispers turned into words. Liar, murderer, thief. All of them mine. Tom tried to pull Eli back, but the floorboards groaned and split between them. The house was coming alive, and it was hungry. She wants me, I whispered. She's always wanted me. Who is she? Tom demanded. I don't know anymore, I said. Maybe she was my sister. Maybe she was me. Maybe I never left this house at all. Eli looked up at me, eyes wide. If you stay, She'll stop. What? If you stay here, she won't take me. No, you're the one she's been whispering to all this time. My chest tightened. A choice. The house didn't want to haunt me. It wanted to keep me. Because maybe I never really left. Maybe I never really could. I kissed Eli's forehead, held his little hands one last time, then turned to the mirror. I remember now, I whispered to her. All of it. I'm not running anymore. She smiled and opened her arms. As I stepped through the cracked glass, the whispering stopped. The walls fell silent. Tom found Eli safe the next morning, asleep on the parlor floor. No sign of Claire, no hidden door, no mirror, just a photograph on the mantel. 2 girls, one smiling, one fading. Chapter 7. The House Remembers. Tom never spoke of what happened in Ashridge House again. Not to me. Not to Eli. Not to anyone. We left the very next morning, bags packed before the sun rose, the car already running by the time Eli rubbed the sleep from his eyes. He asked for his bear. I told him we'd get him a new one. I couldn't bring myself to step back inside. Not even for a moment. The house didn't try to stop us. It didn't scream or moan or groan through the walls. It simply watched. As though it knew. It had gotten what it came for. We moved to a small town 3 hours north. Somewhere new. Somewhere bright. Eli started school again. Slowly began to laugh again. He made friends, drew pictures, sang in the shower. But sometimes in the quiet hours, I'd catch him staring at blank walls like he was listening. And I never asked what he heard. Tom tried to hold things together. For a while. But he never looked at me the same. Because sometimes he still saw her in my eyes. The one who whispered. The one who stayed. Months passed. Then one morning, a letter arrived. No return address. No stamp. Just our names scrawled in elegant antique handwriting. Inside was a single photograph. Ashridge House. Faded and grainy. Taken from the road. But in the parlor window, a face. Pale, familiar, smiling, not mine. The next week, Ashridge House was put back on the market. The listing read, charming historic estate. Ideal for families. Spacious interior with original features. Mirror included. No mention of the basement. No mention of Claire or the other one. They never do. Because the house doesn't haunt. It remembers. Every scream. Every lie. Every child. It waits. Quietly. For the next family. The next laughter in its halls. The next shadow to whisper from the walls. And when they ask about the scratches, or the whispers, or the girl in the window, the agent always smiles and says, it's just the house settling. The end. Thank you for listening to Whispers in the Walls, a chilling tale from Angie's Vault of Stories. We're grateful you joined us, and we hope the silence in your home stays just that. But remember, not all echoes fade with time. Some just wait. So if one night you hear something stir behind the walls, don't answer. Because what's calling out to you might already know your name. It may be remembering you.